In this HTML CSS tutorial, we are going to cover the most fundamental building blocks of HTML. So it is for absolute beginners. So from absolute beginners to advanced, I can say advanced HTML. And we are going to look at headings, paragraphs, links, images, HTML buttons, lists. That is ordered in an ordered list, and then HTML style, the attributes, and tables, and block element versus inline elements, then classes and ID attributes, then the style attributes. Are going to look at how you can use JavaScript in the HTML file, iframes, and many other things. Then the most important, of course, we look at the forms, because forms are very important when dealing with data manipulation. Now, maybe you can just see, look at the things that you are going to cover. I just have some slides here. And the first is the introduction to HTML. And then after that, you look at just a simple HTML document. Then you move at looking at text editors. And then HTML basics. And then after that, you look at the HTML. You start looking at HTML elements, one after another. And then after that, we look at the nested HTML element, the nesting concept, of course. And then now we start with the headings, paragraphs, HTML links, HTML images, HTML buttons, HTML lists, HTML attributes, HTML like examples, HTML style, HTML text formatting HTML elements, HTML comments, HTML styles, HTML tables, HTML block and inline elements, HTML class attributes, HTML ID attributes, HTML iframes, HTML JavaScript, HTML file paths, absolute file paths versus relative file paths, HTML head elements, and then the meta element. We look at the setting, the viewport, and then the script element, then HTML. We finish with the HTML forms. So under HTML forms, we are going to look at the input element, select element, visible values of the select elements. And then we look at other attributes and then input tags like text area, and that will be it. So as you can see, we are going to cover a lot of things that can get somebody maybe who's absolute beginner who wants to learn programming or who is just getting started with programming, and maybe have been advised that you need to start with HTML and then you move to CSS. So here we start from the very basics of HTML to the forms, and then after that, of course, CSS will be for another tutorial again. So thank you so much. And the first thing when coming to the channel is just to click on the like button, because that's going to help in terms of the algorithm classification of the tutorial, and it's going to make it reach to many people. Thank you so much. We'll get started with our course, and the first part is the HTML. And the question that you ask yourself is, what is HTML? Now, HTML stands for Standard Markup Language. It is a standard markup language for creating web pages, and it stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So HTML basically describes the structure of a web page. So for example, how the web page should look like. And HTML consists of elements, of a series of elements like paragraphs, like headers, like divisions. So those are the series of elements that make up that make up HTML documents. So these tags basically tell the browser how to display the data. So for example, if it is h1, it will tell the browser that this is heading 1 and it should be larger. If it is paragraph, it will tell the browser that this is a paragraph and this is how it should be played. So these elements are represented by tags, and we have two types of tags, that is the opening tag and the closing tag. HTML tags label pieces of content such as heading, paragraph, table, and so on. So another point that we need to take note of is that browsers do not display the HTML tags but use them to render the content of the page. So what happens is that you use paragraph tag, but on the web browser it is not going to show the tag, but it's going to show the information of the text in that tag. So let's have a look at a simple HTML document. So the first thing, we have this doc type HTML declaration. What this basically tells the browser, this is information to the browser, telling the browser that this document is type HTML. So just like a Word document or a PDF document, this has this information telling the browser, since HTML documents are opened by the browser, it gives this information to the browser that this document is HTML document. And then we talked about tags or elements. Also, the first element, it is HTML, and we talked about opening and closing tag. So we have this HTML, this is the opening, and take note of this, how it opening looks like, and this is the closing tag. And as you can see, between the HTML and this one here, you find that you have forward slash here. Okay, so these is how all the elements are closed, following by the body tag, and then by the head tag, and then by the body tag. And you can see inside the body tag, we have the body tag starts here and ends here, right? And this is how it is closed. Inside the body, we have the paragraph, we have the heading 1, and this is my first heading. So this is the layout of HTML document. Now we have two major elements. We have what we call nesting, where these elements are nested inside others. So the first is HTML, and it is inside the HTML tag that all the other tags are nested. So the label is this. We have HTML, and then inside HTML we have two tags, the head tag and then the body tag. So inside the head tag, the information that goes inside the head tag is the information to the browser, and this information will not be displayed. But information that goes inside the body tag, this is the information that is usually displayed on the browser, and this is the information that usually the user will see. So how do we write HTML documents? Now, for Word documents, you know that we use Microsoft Word, and all the other documents, they must have software to create them. But what about the HTML documents? So this brings us to what we call text editors. So text editor is a computer program that lets a user enter, change, store, and usually print text, that is characters and numbers, each encoded by the computer in these input and output devices, arranged to have meaning to users. So basically, a text editor is the place where you are going to write these HTML tags. So you create a new document, and then that document you open using the editor. Then inside that editor, you can now start writing your document, or you can now start writing the tags or elements depending on how you want to style your document. So we have examples of text editors, and the free or open source examples are Visual Code Studio, and we also have brackets. So for example, if we search text editors, you find you have a lot of them. Atom, we have a lot of them. We have a lot of them. So we have Sublime Text, Atom, Sublime Text, this one. We have Atom. So Atom is open source. Node++, that is open source. This one, we have a lot of text editors. But I will recommend using what the editor called Visual Code Studio. But you can also use brackets. If you are just starting, you can use a text editor called brackets. So for you to download that, you just go to the browser and then you just write brackets, and you see it is here, brackets.io. This is the code editor. You just download it and then you install it, right? It is a very good editor for HTML and CSS. But when you start writing JavaScript, that is when you require a text editor called VS Code or Visual Code Studio. And this one is a very nice, I think it is the mostly used code editor right now because it is open source. So just go to the website and then you download. I am using Windows 10, so you download the one that fits the machine that you are using. If you have Linux, you download this one. If you have Mac, you download this, but I'm using Windows, so for Windows users, you can download this one. So that is all about text editors. So let's look at HTML basics. So as we saw in the last session, all the HTML documents, they start with this line here, doc type HTML, and this, I said, it is instruction to the browser that this document that you are opening right now is a HTML document. Okay, so the HTML document itself begins with HTML. So this is the first tag, and this must be there, and ends with this one. So this, it opens with HTML tag and then ends with HTML tag. The visible part of HTML document is between body and body. So opening body tag and closing body tag. And we said that. Okay, so what I mean is this. We start with HTML tag and it ends here. And inside the HTML tag, we do what we call nesting. Nesting is placing one tag inside another tag. So for example, we have the HTML tag, we place inside that tag, head tag, and then we place also the body tag. And now inside the body tag, inside the body tag we have h1 and paragraph tag. So basically, we want to see how this works. So what I'm going to do is just to copy this code. And now, how do you create the HTML documents? And we said that we use code editor. And I just want to open here. I just want to open using my code editor. Let me open using I'll open using brackets, or let me just open it using VS Code Studio. So for VS Code, I've opened this in the terminal, and I'll just do code. If you don't worry about this, you can just open. I am opening this using Visual Code Studio, and I'm opening it on the terminal, right? So just in case you don't know how to install code editors, or maybe to install software on your machine, you can just let me know, and then I'll show you. It is quite simple. Now we have opened VS Code editor, and this is the editor. So we said that editor helps you to write HTML documents. Okay, so we have opened that, and we have opened this VS Code inside this folder. So you see that this folder is inside desktop and this PC. It is inside the desktop, right? And you see there is no any single file here. So first thing is you can create documents from the editor. So I can create here documents. Like I can just do file and then new file. And then you see it is untitled. But then I have to save it. I have to save it first. And since it is a HTML document, we save with .html extension. So I'll just name it index.html. So all the Word documents, they end with .docs. All the HTML documents, they end or they have an extension of .html. So I save that. And after saving that, now the computer or this code editor will understand that now that is HTML document, and it will bring all the syntax for HTML for rendering HTML document. So I don't know why it is taking a long time to save. It is still creating the document. And now you see, this is how you see this is HTML5 logo. It appears here. And now we can now paste that inside there. And now you see how the text editor is very good. It colors our code and helps us to know these tags very well. So we can save that. And what I said is that the text here, this text inside the body is visible to the user. But then anything that is inside this Z tag, it is for the browser. It is not meant for the user. So let's just open this inside. We can just open this. And I have an extension. There's something called extension that helps you, gives you extra functionality that the editor has it doesn't have. And you can just install it inside the editor. If you are using VS Code Studio, you can just click on extensions, and then you search extension called live server. It is called live server. Live server, it is here. You see I installed it. So what this extension does, it basically helps you to serve or to open a specific file in the browser. Okay, so let's just close that and let me show you the folder. So there are two ways you can open that file to see how it appears, how it looks like, this file here that you just saved. And the first way is to use that extension, and the second way is to go to the folder where that file is, which is this folder. You see that file is here, and you see it looks like a browser, so meaning that it is a web document. So we can just double click on this and it's going to open in the browser. And here we go. You see it has opened in the browser. Okay. And despite the fact that we said that tags are not shown, so we have all these tags, there's nothing that is shown, and the only thing that is shown is my first heading and then my first paragraph, and those are the only things that are shown. So this is a web document. Now that is how we create web document. We write the code in the code editor and our text editor, and then after that, when we want to open that document, we can just double click on it and it's going to open in the browser because it is a web document. So let's continue. Now the next thing is element, HTML element. So an element usually consists of a start tag and the end tag with the content inserted in between. Now this is very important. If we look at this code here, we find that we have start tag here and then the end tag. So for example, the tag name is body. So we have the starting tag and then the end tag. Example is here. H1, it starts with this H1, and then after that, we have to close it using another H1. But how do we close it? You remember that we must have this forward slash here for it to close or for it to be written well. So that is basically what we mean, what this statement means here. So this, for example, is example. So the tag name, opening tag name, then the content goes here, and then the closing tag name. So an element is everything from start tag to the end tag. So this is an element. In this paragraph, all of this is an element. Okay. So we have a tag, a paragraph tag. You have open and closing, but all of it is called paragraph element. Okay. Now after that, we can talk about nesting, and we already talked about it. So nesting is a concept where HTML tags are inserted inside other tags. So for example, here you can see if we save this document, you see now I have my code editor is able to detect that is HTML, and it is able to nest them very well. Now you see we start with HTML, right? Inside the HTML you have another tag nested or placed inside that tag, and also you have body tag placed inside the HTML tag, and inside the body tag you have H1 tag and paragraph tag placed. So this concept is what we call nesting of HTML tags or elements. So now let's start looking at HTML elements, right? So we start with headings. So headings are defined with the H1 to H6 tag, depending on and this defines the importance. So H1 is the most distinct and H6 is the less distinct. You may think that since we have H6, it should be the most distinct, but that is the opposite. So for us to test that, we are just going to go to our code, and then we will just do this. We just copy that, and we write H1 to H6. So in that H1 will change to H2, and then this one will change to H3. Now I have written 6 headings starting from H1 to H6 here. Now we want to open in the browser and see, we want just to refresh in the browser and see how it looks like, and this is our page. We just refresh, and you see that the H1 is more distinct than and the H6 is the very less distinct and the very smallest. So H1 is the largest, and then it reduces like that till we get to H6. So those are headings. Okay. So this is just a demonstration of what I've been doing, where now we list H1 to, so this one H1 is the more distinct, is the larger heading, and then as we move down to H6, it is less distinct heading. And then we move to paragraphs. Okay, so paragraphs are defined by p tag, and just the same as the H6. If we just place words inside the paragraph, inside this p tag, the browser is going to understand that this is a paragraph, and it is going to display it differently than the way it displays the heading. So this is a paragraph, and you can see a paragraph is very different from headings because it is not bold or the text is not that strong. So for example, you can just add words. You can just add words so that you can see. So I've just added these default wordings, and I just want us to open and refresh, and you see now how the paragraph looks like. So it knows that this is a paragraph. Okay, so for us to do that, we can just define We can just do h1 and call it paragraphs, and then this one we can just call it headings. I think that will be a bit that is a good way of organize. So we have headings here, and then you have paragraphs. So these are how paragraphs are displayed, and these are how headings are displayed. Alright, so it continue. So links. What are links? So links helps you to navigate from one page or one web page to another, or from that browser, or from a certain website or linked website to another website. So web links are usually presented by what we call anchor tag. So this a tag is called anchor tag, and HTML element has what we call attributes. For example, this anchor tag is different. So let's just copy this. Let's just copy this. Or you can just write. So for us to write anchor tags, so you can just do it and then call it links. So for us to write a link, we start by writing a and then tag it, then we close. But then it has an attribute called href. So this href, inside these two quotes, double quotes, this is where we place the address of the page you want to navigate. So for example, if we want that page to lead us to Google, we just do Google. You can just do www.google.com, and then here we place the text that we want the user to know about where this link is going. So we can just do google.com or Google website, just like that. So if we save that and go to the browser and refresh, you find that whatever is displayed is the Google website. And if we click on it, what happens? It says the file could not be accessed. So it is opening that inside this, and that is why. So what we are going to do is, instead of that, we're just going to do HTTPS that is how to do website. We'll talk about that later. So let's just save that, and then we'll go back to we just go back and then refresh and try it again, and there you go. You find that it takes us to the Google website. So that is all about links. Okay, now let's talk about another thing. We have images, and I think images we can look at them in the next session. But then the images basically is what you know, all the images you can see on our website, right? So for example, you see these images, how are they displayed? So that is about images, and we'll do that in the next session. Thank you so much. So in the last section, I said that we are going to work on images in this section. So HTML images are defined with img tag. So HTML document are defined by img tag, like here you see. So, and there are attributes. We talked about attributes, okay, and they provide additional information about the tag. So how do we display an image? Let's just copy this. But what happens is that you have opening img tag, and then you have an attribute called source, and this attribute called source has a address to where the image is located, and then you have alternative. So this alt tag contains the information of the text that will be displayed in case this image is not displayed, or in case this image is not found. This text is going to be displayed, and then you have attribute width and attribute height, which are optional. right? So how do you want to style that image? You want it to be height 142 pixels by width 106 pixels. So let's just copy this, and then we are going to the HTML, and after that we just do images, and after that we just paste that. And remember, this image must exist. So what happens is that this image, the image that you want to display, for a start, it can be online. If it is online, just copy that link and paste it inside the src attribute. If you want it or to place it inside your folder or project folder, you can have, for example, a folder called images. So for example, inside this project directory or folder, if I say directory, I am meaning folder. So you can just create a new folder there and call it images. And we have to get an image there so that we can display that image. And I just want us to go to the browser and search for an image. Just do image. We can just take any image, for example this one, and what I'm going to do is just download it. I'm just going to right click, and then I can get I can just copy the link address, right? But let me download it so that I am saving the image as. And where am I going to save it? I am going to save it inside the desktop, inside the project folder. And then we have that folder is called HTML, CSS. This is the folder. And then we have inside the images, and we just save like that, image lights dot img_lights.jpg. So after making sure that we have that image, you see this is images directory, and then you have inside the images you have this image here. So you can now just change this to that. So just do images and then image light. So you see I'm doing dot and then /. That tells this tells the browser that image is inside the current directory. That this dot / it tells the browser that the image is inside the current directory, and the image name is image lights, right? And then after that we can just save it. So after saving it, we will go to the browser and refresh, and there we go, we have our image here. So you see the way we are displaying width of 102. We can change this width to 200 and save it. And if we go back and refresh, you see the image becomes larger. So you can change the height or the width of the image using these attributes, height and width attributes. So that is all about the images. And now we can look at another tag, and this is button. So what is a button? Buttons are very common. You can click on a button. For example, it helps you to maybe navigate from one page to another. Like we have submit button on HTML forms, and we'll look at HTML forms later. But then let me just copy that and go to the browser here and just do HTML buttons, and then after that I just press that and save it. And if you go to the browser and refresh, you see I am a button. This is how it looks like. This is how a button looks like, and you can click on it, and it can lead you to a certain location, right? So that is all about buttons. Now let's talk about HTML lists. we have two types of HTML list, that is ordered and unordered lists. So unordered lists, unordered lists do not have a certain order. For example, ordered lists, they have numberings like 1, 2, 3 like that, but then an ordered list is just a bulleted list. So the first thing, and when you are creating any list, you have to start with the type of list. So if it is an ordered list, you start with UL, and then after that, inside the UL you nest li tags, and this is what I'm talking about. So just do h1 and then just do lists, and you can do h2 and do an ordered lists, and then inside there you're just going to paste that code. So the first thing, we start with the type of list. This list is an ordered list, so it is UL. And which items do you want to put in that list? You use li tag to list all those items. And if we open, you find that it is just a bulleted list. If we open the page and then refresh, you find that it's just a bulleted list. This is an ordered list. Okay, and now let's look at ordered lists. So ordered list is the same as this, but only that instead of OUL, you start with OL, right? So we just go to there, and then you can copy this. So you can just do H2 again and name it ordered list. And you can paste that, and what you will see that this is a numbered list, 1, 2 like that. So let's just go there and refresh, and there we go, you see 1, 2, 3, that is ordered list. So that is the difference between an ordered list and ordered lists. Now we talked about attributes, and we said that attributes provide additional information about HTML elements. For example, anchor tag, it has href. For example, image tag has source and it has alt tag. So those are the attributes, right? We have like forms, HTML form elements like input have name tag, okay, and name attribute, I mean not tag. So let's look at the attribute example. So, and we are focusing on href attribute. So links are defined with anchor tag. The link address is specified by href attribute. So for example, this is the tag, anchor tag, but then you have this attribute of href here, which defines the location that website will go when somebody clicks on that link. All right, and then we have the source attribute on images. So these are the attribute. This src attribute indicates the location of that image. Now we come to HTML style. What are HTML style attributes? So setting the style of an element can be done with the style attribute. So a style is, for example, you want to display some element in a different color, or you want it to be in a different font or larger font. So we use HTML style attribute. So, and this style attribute is nested inside the, you see is nested inside the start tag or opening tag. So before closing the h1 tag, we do the style tag and then whatever we want. So let's just copy this so that I can show you. So you have the tag name, opening tag name here, and then style is equals to, and we have the property and value. So property can be like color, can be like font size, font type, and then the value can be color like red, like the size of 32 pixels. So let me just show you. So just do one and we call it HTML style attribute. And what we are going to do, we're just going to do h3, h4, and do this is heading 4, and then we just do that. Style equals to color red. So what we are instructing the browser that when you get this to this h4 tag, make it the color of this text to be red. And if we save this and go back to the page and refresh, you find that this is heading 4 is red, but this heading 4 here, it is not red. So that is what the style does. You can style certain tags differently from others. So for example, we have color, we have something like if we want to do many attributes, we can separate with semicolon, and then we can do like font size. We want to make it larger, so you can do font size, and then we can do larger or extra larger. And let's look at how it looks like. You can just refresh and see, and you can see now it is very large, even larger than here. So that is the style tag, a style attribute I mean. So HTML text formatting. So HTML text can be formatted in various, so you can make it italicized, where now you display the slanting text. You can make some text bold. Okay, so HTML also defines special elements for defining text special meaning. For example, uses B tag and I tag for formatting output like bold and italic text. So what that means is that, for example, we want some of the paragraph here, like this paragraph, to be bold. We just do B, we just define B tag, and we enclose the text that you want to be bold inside the B tag. So you can just copy that and then paste there. And what happens is that this part of the text is going to be bold. And let's say we want this to be slanting, we'll just use I tag, right? I is standing for italicized. So just cut that and paste there, and this part of the text is going to be slanting or italicized. So that is how HTML elements are formatted. So let me just go here and then refresh, and there we go. You find that the first part is bold, and then from where we put the I tag is in italics. So the example of formatting elements is B. This makes a text bold. Strong, it is implied that text is important, but of course it styles the same as bold, this B tag. Then you have I for italic text, emphasized text, EM, and then you have marked text, small text, deleted text. So you can just try all these tags and see how the text is going to appear. Okay, you can't test all of them, but then you can just test all of them and see how they format various text. So HTML comments. So what are comments? So comments are not displayed. For example, if we copy this, comments are not displayed, and they are not for people. They are for developers. So let's say that I want to say to the developer or another person who will be looking at my code that this is a link. What I do, I just write a comment above there and just say this link leads to Google website, and I save that. Now what happens that this text will not be displayed. So how do you write a comment? The first thing you start with is that opening bracket, and then you do exclamation mark and then 2, and then you finish with 2 hyphens and then greater than or less than a sign or tag, and that one is going to, whatever goes here is not displayed. So let's just save that, and if we go to the browser and refresh, you find that it has not been displayed anywhere because that is a comment. So that is how you write HTML, the comments. So let's talk about HTML styles. So HTML styles are used for styling. They are used for styling an HTML document. CSS stands for cascading style sheets, and we are going to look at it later. And we have three types of CSS or cascading style sheets. So cascading style sheet means that this is the CSS. We said HTML CSS. HTML is the tags, but CSS is the styling of those tags. So you can say that HTML is the skeleton, and then CSS comes and put on the skeleton the flesh so that this can look like a person. And we have three types of CSS. The first one is inline, the second one is internal, and the third is external. So the inline is the one that we've just done, the one that we did before, where we put styling inside a tag like this. So this one is the inline style. And then the internal will go inside the h tag, inside the head tag. We'll just do the style like that, and then here we can just say paragraphs. We want to give paragraphs the color of green, and this one will affect all this is the style. It is internal, meaning that it is inside that document. It's going to affect all the paragraphs. So anything that is called paragraph, it's going to be color green. Let's save that and just go here and refresh and see. And there we go. You see this paragraph has turned to or changed to green. So the style that is written inside the document head here, and not just inside a certain element or a certain element like the way we did down here, this is called internal style. Okay, and then you have another the third one is called external style. So external style is the one that is recommended for developers, and is the one that is written on a separate file. That file has an extension of .scss. So for example, you can create a new file here and just save it as style.css like that. And then this style document, we can now put there the style that we want. So we want h1 to be color purple. We want all the h1 to have the color of purple. Now we have done that. After doing that, if we go to the page and refresh, nothing happens. It does not affect any element. But then if we have to link, the reason why it doesn't explain, it does not show or doesn't show anything, we have to link it to this document for it to have an effect. And for us to link, we will use what we call link tag. So we do link. This tag is self-closing. It doesn't have the closing tag. It is self-closing. And then inside this href is where we'll place the location of that file, and that file is inside this. It is inside the same folder as this HTML document. So just do / and then we select that file like that, and that is it. If we save and go back and refresh, you see that all the h1 they have turned to purple, right? So that is it with HTML. But let me talk about a very important concept. CSS works with priority. So let's say that we have we have inside the external, we are making the header 1, so the first headings to be purple, and then we come inside the index.html, and inside the style here, inside the style, we make the h1. Let me just make the h1, and then we do color and give it orange. Guess what is going to happen? What is going to happen is that the external HTML is going to be given priority. So it is not going to display here unless this link tag is placed down here. Unless it is placed down here. But if the this one here where we are importing style.css is up or above this style, the headings will be rendered with color orange. So that is the priority that we have to look at. So if we go back and refresh, we find that all the headings changes to purple. And the reason is that the internal style is given priority. Only if we want now to bring this down here, if we bring that down there, you find that, let's go and refresh, and now you find it turns to purple. And the reason is that this code will be run and changes the h1 to orange, but then when it gets here, it imports this style and find that this one is rendering HTML, rendering the tag with purple, and then it turns to purple. But then now we go to the internal or inline CSS. So inline CSS is the one that's given the first priority. For example, this h1, if we give it inline style and say color is equals to blue, what is going to happen is that this inline style is going to be given priority, and the first heading is going to be displayed with blue, color blue. So let's save that and go back and see. And there you go, this one is given blue. So that is very important. It's a very important concept. So now we have what we call HTML tables. So what are HTML tables? Everybody knows a table, right? Everybody knows a table. And table is defined with the table tag. Like that, a table tag. So you start, this is how we start. So I'll just do that and then do h1 and HTML table. So the table starts with the table tag, and then inside the table tag we have the table head and the table body. So the table head is the heading of the table, so just do t head and then t body, like that. And then after that we have what we call row. So it will be tr, and inside that row we do th, and we can say maybe name, email, then we can just do country, and then after that we go to t body, we do tr, then inside the tr we do td, and we can say name is Simon, and then email can be simon@gmail.com, and then the country can be Kenya. And if we save that table and we go back and refresh, Just let's scroll down. You see it is displayed like a table, but doesn't look right. It doesn't look that appealing. So you have to style it. For example, you can give this table style. So you can just do style and we change the border to 2 pixels. And after that, you can try to refresh and see how it looks like. Is it? I think it is table border or something. So you can just style it up here. You can just do table and then border. And just give it 4 pixels. You can do 4 pixels solid, and the color that you want color black, just like that. So let's save that and go back and refresh. And you see it is bordered, but then we have to do the same we have to do the same. Instead of 4, we just want 1, and we want to do the same for TH and TD. So a table is styled like that. And now you see how it looks like. Now it looks like a table. But then there is a way you can style that table very well so that it can be a very nice table. But this is basically how you style the table to look like a table. Okay? So that is it with the table. And for example, this is an example of a table. So you can just copy this and you can paste it down here. It's just the same thing I've been doing. And let's try to refresh again and see how that one is displayed. And now look at how it is displayed. So it depends, you can style it or you can just give it a width. You can just give it a width, right? And that is it. That is it. So we have block element and inline elements, and I think that we'll talk about it in the next session. Thank you so much. So in this section, we are going to start looking at block and inline elements. So what is the difference between block and inline elements? So elements are basically divided into 2. We have block elements and the inline elements. So those are the display values, right? So block level elements always starts on a new line and takes up full width available or stretches to the left and right as far as it can. So what this means is that a block element, let me give you example, and I just go down this table. I am going to add a tag called break tag, and the break tag basically creates a new line. So I just want to create a break tag like that. Now just set h1 here and I'll do a block level elements. So after doing that, I've just saved. What I want to do, I want to create a paragraph, one paragraph, and say this is a block level element. And I'm also going to, after that block level element, I'll create another one again. And this time, instead of block, I'm going to do inline, right? And then after that, I'm going to create, instead of paragraph, I'm going to create a tag called span. And then I'll do, this is an inline level element. And I'm doing this so that you can see. So I'll do that. I will copy another one and do next to that, and then do next to that. So there are three span elements. And I'm also going to copy this paragraph and paste 3 times. So 1, 2. So there are 3. So let's open let's open just the file in the browser, refresh, and you can scroll down. Now I want you to take note of this. I said this is block level element. The block element, despite the fact that I pasted one paragraph next to the other, this paragraph did not appear on one line, right? But then the inline level elements, I pasted one span beside another span, and they are just on one line. So that is the difference between inline and block level elements. So inline block level element, they occupied space, just as this is described here. A block level element always starts on a new line. It will always start on a new line. It doesn't matter if you had 1,000 paragraph tags standing or placed next to each other, they will always occupy a new line. But then inline element, they don't. If you place them, they just do that, right? They not break the line, or they will not start new line. And for example, you have span elements. You have also anchor tag, anchor tags. You can say link 1, and then you can paste next to each other. You can say link 1, you can do link 5, link 4, link 3, link 2, link 2. So if we save this again and go back and refresh our page, you find that the links, they have not occupied any line. They are just next to each other as we place. So that is the difference between the block level elements and the inline elements. Okay, so let's move to another thing. So example of a block level element, you have address, article, aside, block, canvas, all of these, nav, ul, table foot, section, table, div, main, nav, all those, these are block level elements. And what about inline elements? So inline elements, they're like span, okay? So for example, these are examples of inline. You have anchor tag, abbreviation, I'm sorry for that. We have anchor tag, abbreviation, video big, all these buttons, those are what we call inline elements. And then you can look at a class attribute. Now, this is a very important thing, because why is a class attribute very important? It is important because after HTML, you are going to start doing CSS, and then after CSS, of course, you are going to start doing JavaScript. And these elements are JavaScript. For you to understand JavaScript, or how JavaScript changes or works on HTML pages or attributes, you have to understand the elements very well in those attributes. So for example, a style helps us to give a class to specific elements, and can be for various purposes. For example, for styling them or for manipulation. So we have ID attribute and class attribute. So how do we do them? So this is an element, is a paragraph, right? So let me just do another way. I'm just going to do h1 again and do class attributes. I can just do them together, class and id attributes. Okay, and I will start with paragraph. So I do paragraph. This is a paragraph. And now our attribute written. I told you that in this opening tag, we do space and then we give an attribute. So for example, it is a class. So a class of what? We can give it a class of para1, or we can just call it para. And then we want to do maybe 3 of them or 4. So this class, it has classified all these elements as, we can use this class to style all these elements the same way. So class can be applied to many elements, but ID is an identity of a specific element. So ID cannot be, one ID cannot be given more than one element. Okay, so this is a class, but we can just give another class here. We can just do class, this is a paragraph, and then you are going to give it an ID. ID is like identity, it only identifies that. You can just give it last paragraph, or last P to stand for last paragraph. Now that is about ID and then the class. So a class, for example, look at maybe the education system. We have standard 1, standard 2, standard 3. That is the system of education, for example, in Kenya. And people in the same class, they are like same, right? So somebody in class 5 is not the same with somebody in class 8, but all those people who are in that class, they learn the same things. So they are identical in other terms. So giving one element a specific, some element specific class can help you style those elements. So for example, we can choose this paragraph and style it so that we can make all those paragraphs green. So what we do, if we go to the style, or if we go to the style here, we can just take that class and you start with dot. This is CSS, and we'll look at CSS later. So dot, the class name is para. And how do you want to style these elements? So all the elements that have a class of para, we can give them maybe color of red, of lime, maybe we can give it lime green. And then font size, we can make the font size larger or extra large, this one here. Okay, and save it. So after saving that, we can go and refresh. You can go back to the browser and refresh. And what happens is, we have very many paragraphs here. These are paragraphs, but those that we have given that class of para are the ones that have been affected, and this one has not been affected, right? This one has not been affected. So we can also target the last class with the ID, and we're targeting ID. We start with the hash like that in the ID name. So ID is last P, and then we can just give it color of black, and then font size, we can just give it a very huge, we can do 60 pixels and save it, and we can go and refresh, and you see this one is so big because this is the ID. Now that is the ID identifies one element, and then class can be applied to as many elements as you want. So that is it. We can look at another thing. So ID attribute, I've talked about that. And now let's look at iframe. So what are iframes? So let's say that you want to embed a section of a certain website into your website, you use what we call iframe. Okay, so an iframe is used to display a web page within a web page. Okay, so for example, you can display a certain file within your folder, project folder, or you can display a URL. Okay, so for example, let me just show you. So I'll scroll down and then I'll just do H1 and name iframes. Okay, so iframe, we'll just do iframe, and the first one is the source. So this source is where you want to, whatever you want to embed there. Okay, so let me show you. You can just maybe do HTTPS and then google.com, and then we can save that. And then if we open that, let's open our page now and see. Just refresh, and this one, it says that Google refused to connect. Google, you can just try to do www.google.com and save it, and we can refresh again. I don't know why Google is working. Let me see if the internet is. Okay, internet is there. Okay, maybe we can just use another website. You can just copy that. You can just copy this standard website, and then you'll go to the code and we will embed it there. Just paste it there and save it. And after saving, we can go and test it. They are refusing to be embedded into. I don't know why they are not being. They are not embedded. They are not agreeing. They are not. It is not embedded, or it is not showing the page. And maybe let's try to give it a height of 300 pixels and width of 400 pixels. And we can also do this. We can also use another file. This is how to use a link, but you can also use another file. For example, I want to embed just a file that is in here. So let me just copy this, and then I'm going to create another file. I'm just going to create another file here and call it page2.html. Then I'll paste the same code there and save it. So we can go to the index.html and then we can embed page2. That is when we are now embedding the file that is there. You can just come here and then do page2. page2.html, then save it. And there you go. You see now that page has been embedded here. Okay, so that page has been embedded here. So that is how iframes work. You can embed one page inside, or you can embed a link, right? So that is it with the iframe. We can look at HTML, JavaScript. So when you want to include JavaScript in your HTML page, what do? So you use the tag called script. And this script basically embeds JavaScript. So we can maybe go to the index.html, and if we want to write JavaScript, we'll use script tag like that, and then script here. Anything that you write here, it will be taken as JavaScript. So we can say, for example, var name is equals to Simon. Simon is a good teacher, like that. And then we can just do document. Don't worry about this. Dot get element by ID last p dot inner HTML equals to name. So that is JavaScript that I've just written, and you see this one has been replaced by JavaScript. I don't know if you understand, but let me just comment out this one. And that is not how we comment out JavaScript. I'll just comment out that one and refresh. You see, initially we gave this paragraph an ID of last p, and that paragraph is here. You see this paragraph last p. So I've just written the JavaScript that will do one thing. The JavaScript that is going to look for an element with an ID of last p, which is this one, and then it is going to replace the text with the text that I've defined here, which is Simon. This is now programming, but don't worry about it. We'll get to that if you don't know yet. And now if I save that, you find that if I refresh, it replaces this text with the text I've instructed it. Now that is JavaScript. Okay, that is how we embed JavaScript in our HTML document. Well, now we can now look at file paths. Okay, so we have two types of file paths, that is absolute path and relative path. Okay, so absolute path is the full URL of an internet file. So like if we get a link, that is the full URL. For example, a file, we can just do like this. Let me just go down and do H1 and file paths. So the first one I'll do absolute path, and the second one I'm going to do relative path. So in the last, we were talking about the file paths, and we said that we have absolute and relative file paths. So in this section, I want us to look at the difference. So absolute file path is the full path to the file. So it can be a full web path or can be a full path based on the folder that you are in. So for example, if we come here into our folder, which is HTML CSS here, and we just take this and we open it in the browser, you find this, and you see the path to that file is here. This is the path to that file. So we can say that this is absolute path because it's the full path to that index.html. So we can do this. For example, we can open page 2 and you get the page 2 full path. So you can copy the page 2 full path there, and then if we go to the code, we can just create a link, and then actually if we do that and give it a name of page 2, okay, and let's save that. Now after saving that, I just want us to go to the page. Let's just close this page 2 and just refresh, reload. So after reloading, if we click here, you see that it opens page 2. This is the page 2. Okay, so we have put the path to that file, but that path is absolute path. It is the full path to that file. So that path we call it absolute path. But another way we could do it, so let me just copy this. Another way we could do it, we can do it using relative path. So for example, in relationship to what? In relationship to the current folder, we can say that the page 2.html is in the current folder, and you look at in the current folder for the file called page2.html. So this is the relative path. So relative to what? Relative to the folder or to something. So this is the relative path, and this one is the absolute path. So you can save that again, and now we can just do relative page 2. We can just call it that way. So after saving that, we can go and refresh again, and if we click on relative page 2, you see it opens page 2, right? So that is the difference between relative and absolute paths. So it's important to look at head elements. Okay, we've looked at other elements that are nested in the body, and I want to say that all these elements that you are writing, these are not the only elements that we are looking. The elements that we'll look at in this course or in these tutorials are not all the elements that are there in HTML. There are very many elements in HTML, and it's upon somebody want to learn to go further and look for other elements like divs, aside, and all other elements. There are many elements, but right now let's look at the head, at this head element. So we said that we have HTML, and then inside the HTML we have a head element nested and also the body element. We've been focusing on the body element, but I want to look at head element. So the head element is a container for metadata, that is data about data, and is placed between HTML tag and the body tag. HTML metadata is data about the HTML document. Metadata is not displayed. Metadata is typically defined the document title, the character set, styles, and so basically what this means is that the head contains the metadata, and that means that is the data about that document. So remember that in the body, the things that go inside the body tag are the things that are displayed to the people. But then many things that are in the head tag is information about the document, and this information is meant for the browser. It's not for the people. So in the body, you'll find like the title of the document. So we've opened this here. Okay, we've opened index.html, but you don't see any title here. But let me show you something. So if we just come to the document, then we can do title. and let's call it introduction to HTML and save that. After saving that, if we go back and refresh, you see that that title appears here. So that is the title of the document. And in the metadata, you'll find that this is where we put scripts, we link CSS here. For example, we link the external CSS here, and any other things like we want to link any CDN files, any other files, you do them on this head. Okay, so let's just continue to look at that. And the title tag, you looked at that, and that defines the title of the document. Okay, so this is the body, and then the title is placed inside the head. This is the page title. And then the style. So the style is also placed in the head tag. So, and we did that. You see that when we give this style, it applies to the document and change various aspects of our document, of the tags that are in the body, right? So that is about the style. Style is also nested inside the head tag. And so here we have the link. And this link, I told you that this link is used to link, you want to link the external files. For example, you want to link the CSS or style, a cascading style sheet. You do that using the link element. And as you can see here, this link element we use to link style.css file, which is here. And now we get to the meta tag. So the meta element is used to specify which character set is used. Page, description, keywords, author, and other metadata. So when you want to include more information, for example, the character set, so there are encoding types of encoding. So a document is encoded, and you have to define the character, the encoding. So this one is UTF-8. Okay, so these are the uses of meta tag. Now, for example, you can copy this information. You're not going to see it, but mostly you can't. It has to be in the head tag, but it is not a must. You see that we didn't have it, but we were able to display a document. But then it is just important. For example, the keywords. What are the keywords in the document, in the HTML document? Okay, so you give the description here, and then the keywords, the description of the document, and then the keywords. Okay, the keyword like HTML, whatever, those are the keywords, and then the name of the author, and then the whatever, right? So if we refresh, and then, okay, we are not refreshing the right document. If we refresh this one here, if you open this, you see, you should see the description of the file. Mostly you usually do that. Alright, so I think that is the uses of meta tag. So you can see, for example, use the description of the page, the keyword, the author, and many other information. And any other information, they are usually put in the meta element. And then we move to another element, which is important, and that element is the setting the viewport. So HTML5 introduced a method to let web designers take control over the viewport through the meta tag. So the viewport is the user's visible area of the web page. It varies with the device and will be smaller on a mobile phone. So this is the meta tag. And this is the method that we are talking about. Let me just copy it and I will tell you. So when I talk about the viewport, I'm talking about the visible area of a website. So this is the area that you can see. This is what we call viewport. This area you can see. So we have what we call responsive web design. So responsive is where can also be called adaptive web design, and this is where a page responds to the size of the device. So when you are using a large screen, it is going to customize the element like paragraph to fit inside that. And then when you switch to the smaller device, it's also going to switch. It's going also to adapt itself to the size of that. The size of the device. So for that to work, you use what we call the viewport. So the viewport is placed into the meta name equals to viewport, and then the content. So width is equals to device width, and then initial scale. So this is how what you do, and then it will make that page responsive to whatever device. So for example, if we refresh, basically is going to respond, and you see that these elements are not smaller as they were when they're not that small as they were when it was not there. So let me just prove it. Let me just cut this and then save that. So if I save that and then come and refresh, you see that the elements, they don't fit. You see the paragraph they don't fit. Okay, they don't fit. But then if I come and add that tag there, it makes it responsive. It knows that this device is smaller, this device is smaller, and then it has to fit the content there. And here you see now the content now fits there. Now that is mostly used in responsive designing. The more you do designing, you learn about it. This one is very important. It helps you to make your page responsive. So you have setting the viewport. It gives the browser instructions on how to control the page's dimensions and scaling. The width equals to device width, device minus width. Part sets the width of the page to follow the screen width of the. So it makes the page to follow the width of the screen. So if the screen is large, it's going to extend the content and make the content larger, but the screen is small, it makes the content smaller. And then the script element. I think we talked about the script element, where I said that we can use the script element inside the document for us to write functions that are going to manipulate the HTML tags and classes. Now we go to HTML forms, and these are very important concept because after learning HTML you learn CSS, and then after that you'll do JavaScript, and then you can maybe do Node.js or PHP depending on the specialization that you want to take for the backend now, because whatever you are doing is basically the front end or the client side also. Now forms are very important because remember, developers are dealing with data. Whether you are a front-end developer or back-end developer, you are dealing with data manipulation, okay, or data presentation. So the front-end developer is presenting data, but the back-end developer deals with that data manipulation, right? So creation and manipulation. So the forms are very important. Now we start with the form elements. Now how do you create a form? So I want to go to the document down here, and then we are going to do a form. Just do h1 and call it HTML forms. And our HTML forms are created, so it's just a form element like that. So I'll explain everything. So we have the form element, and then the form is used for collecting the user data. So we have the form element, and then inside the form element we define the element that will collect the data from the user. For example, we may need the user email, we may need the username, right? And now in doing this, we have input element. That is the first element that you want to look at. So input is you are now requesting the user for data, either name or email or whatever. And then the type is here now. If it is email, the type is going to be email. If it is a number, the type is going to be number. If it is just a text, the type is going to be text. And then we have name attribute. Name attribute is really important. Without that name attribute, when you are processing data using PHP or any other backend language, you will not be able to get the data, because this name attribute is the one that carries the data. It's like the identity of this, of the what the user entered inside this field. So we can say name. So if we give it a name, in the backend we are going to look for the field called name, because that is where this data will be sent. And then just that, we can save that, and after saving that we can go back to the here and then refresh. Then we just want to exit there. We can just exit there. We can just exit that mobile, and then you see this is how it appears, right? Now it is an input. You can put there name, right? You can put there the name. Okay, let's continue looking at it. So we said that the input element has many attributes. First is the type of data you want to collect, and then the identity or the name we want to give it. So another thing is placeholder, and placeholder is where now you want the instruction to the user. You can say like enter your name and save it. So after doing that, if we refresh, you find that enter your name is inside that. Let's just add some break tags so that we can have a clear view. You can just add several break tags so that you can have a clear view of what we are doing. So after saving, let's just refresh, and now you see here we enter your name. So that placeholder is like the information to the user. What do you want the user to know? But then before that, you have the tag called label. So I just do label, and then for what? So this label is like you are labeling this input. You are labeling that input for. So for example, name, and then we can now just say name like that. And if we save it, let's just save it and go back and refresh. And you see now this name is a labeling for the input here. So the name, and you can do the same for name, and then we can do name. We can do this second one. You can do for email, and then here we just do email. You can do an email or enter email, whatever you want. Then the name here will be email. But then remember, this type must be email, like that. So if we save that, then let's just change for this to maybe age, and then this one you can just do age, and then age will be number. So just change the type to number. So I'm bringing this example so that I can maybe demonstrate. Then it can be age. Then after that, I just want to delete this. We just need a few of them. So after saving that, we'll go and refresh, and now you see how it looks like here. You find that you have a name, and then we have email, and we have age. So right now we have the age. Right now here I cannot enter text. You see, I'm trying to enter text, but you can't. You can't enter text here. But if I enter numbers, it accepts, because I said that the type of the information will be number. Then here I can enter, but then if I add HTML5 validation, you find that it will not allow us to continue unless we enter valid email. And you see now this form is inline, right? It is inline. So if you want those tags, each tag to be on a separate line, you can just use break tag like that. This break tag forces the next text to start on a new line like that. If we save that and go back and refresh, you find that now all these, each one is on its own line. And you can even make them too. And now you see how it looks like. Now this is our form, but then there's one thing. You have to submit the form. So for us to submit the form, we need the submit button. So we just do input. There are two ways we can do that. We can do input type is submit, and then submit. We can just do input type submit like that, and that will be enough. If we save that and go back to our and you see now we have submit button here. Now if somebody clicks here, this information that is there is going to be submitted. So for example, if I do Simon at gmail.com, and then maybe age, whatever age, and then click on submit. You see, if you look at this very carefully, you see name is equal to Simon, email is equal to Simon at gmail.com, age is equal to 36. And why are you saying that? Well, we'll talk about that later. But let's continue looking at the form. So let's just go here and continue. So I've talked about the input, and the input element can be displayed in several ways depending on the type of attributes. And then we have very many elements. So I've just introduced the input element, and I've shown you how it is used. Another element we can use inside the form is select element, and select element helps one to select many options. So let's say that you have many options and you want somebody to select only one. Okay, so what you are going to do is you are going to use the select element like that. So if we save that, this is how it is written. So select the name. Remember, this name is very important, and then the options that you want inside the option, and then the value. So let me just go here and refresh, and you can see here select tag is here, but then I just want to maybe use break tag to go to a new line, and also the same I'll apply here. And now you see the select tag is here, so we can select one of them. So that is the select element. And I want to talk about, let me just look at the select element. I want to say that it starts with select, and then the attribute name, and the name that you want to give that field. So remember, this name will be used to get the data that the user selected in the backend using a backend programming language like PHP or JavaScript or Python. And then option here, each option stands for option that you want the user to select. So the value, this value is the one that will be sent there. So let's say that somebody selects Volvo here. The value that will be sent is here. This is the value that will be sent to the backend. This is the only naming. This is the naming, but this is not what will be sent. It is this value here. So I can change even if I want to change it, but then this is the value that's going to be sent to the backend to be processed. So I hope that is enough. And then now inside the select, we have the option here. Okay, and say that option element defines an option that can be selected. By default, the first item in the drop-down list is selected. So by default, the first one is usually selected, and that is we can just demonstrate here. So here you have many options here, right? But then look at what is selected first is the first option here. So if we go to the browser and just look at it, you find that Volvo is the one that is selected because it is the first option. But if let's say that you want this last one to be selected by default, you just add the word selected and it is the one that will be selected by default. So if we go back and refresh, you find that now the last one is the one that is selected by default. So use the size attribute to specify the number of visible values. So you can use size maybe to specify the visible attributes. Let me just copy here and show you. Just paste that down there and do menu break and save it. Let's just refresh. And now you can see the ones that are visible are 3 here. Okay, there are 4, but then you can only display 3 if you want. So that is the size. We said the size is 3. As well, you can change the size to 2. And this changes the number of visible selections. So if we refresh here, you see that the visible selections are now 2. So the one that will be seen here. Instead of 1, you can make them 2 or whatever number you want. And then now allowing multiple selection, you just add the word multiple like that. Just copy that. You can just add the word multiple here, and this will allow for multiple selection. That. So this one will allow multiple selections. Alright, so let's move on. So the text area element. So the text area element, the one that is in the form and helps you to write a text. So now we have the data types. We have string, we have text, we have boolean. But then if you want to write text, let's say that you want the user to write a description, you use the input element called text area. So let me show you how it looks like. Then you save. Then after saving that, let's just go and refresh and see how it looks like. So this is how the text area looks like, right? And then the text area has no placeholder. So if you want to do placeholder, just write here. This is the placeholder. We can just do this. Please describe. And you can just do give the information about yourself. And basically that will act as the placeholder. And you can just refresh again and you see that is like the placeholder. So this placeholder, the text area input field is used to enter a descriptive text. And then of course you have the name, and then you can alter the width and you can alter the height. So using you can use the CSS or you can use the style tag, the style attribute. So for example, here you can just add that, and then if we go back and refresh, you see that has been altered. So that is how you can style it differently the way you want. But then just want it to go back to the default. Right, so let's go on. Now button. button can also be a form element that can be used instead of input type button. So instead of this, you can just but then let me explain something. So the type is submit. We have what we call value. Let me show you something. Now, when we don't put any type or anything, you find that submit text, the text will just be submit. But let's say that you want to change the value of the text to save or to update. You just add value and you can do the value of save like that. And then you can see the text has changed. And then I was talking about changing these input types are made to button. So you can just do button, and you have three types of button. You have if you just do type here, you have reset button, submit button. So you can just do type, and you can see we have reset button, menu button, you have just submit. So you say select type submit, and then you can say save like that. It is going to act as a submit button. So if somebody clicks on that button, like here, that form is submitted, as you can see there. Okay. So now let's look at the input types. Of course, input, the type can be button, it can be checkbox, can be color, date, email, file, hidden, it can be number. There are many types of input depending on the data that you want that input to accept. So if you want the user to only enter email, then the input type will be email. If it's a button, it will be a button. If it's a checkbox, going to be a checkbox. Right? So another types are image, months, number. There are very many of them. So it is upon you to do research on them. So you have very many input types. But basically, whatever you can take home is that input types actually is the type of data you want the input to accept. So email cannot be entered in the input type number. And then you have the value. I've just used the value. So let's say that the value, let's say that you want to put the value there. The value, you want to give that field the value. Just the same way we do to submit. The value, that will be the value that will be sent when that input is sent. So for example, age, we can do value, and you can do value 50 like that. Like this input type number and the name is age, and we have given it the value of 50. So if we come to the file and then refresh, what's going to happen is that when we submit this form, if we click on save, you can see by default this age is 50 here. It is 50. And if we submit, you find that if you look at this, you find that the age is 50. Okay, age is 50. So that is what the value attribute means. And then you have read-only attributes. So read-only attributes prohibits a value from being changed. So for example, this input that you've given the value of 50, we can give it an attribute of read-only, and it will not allow anybody to edit that. So I've just saved that, and if we come here and refresh, you see that I can't do anything. I'm trying to click to do, but there's nothing I can do because it is read-only, cannot be edited. And we have many attributes like disabled. So disabled, that can work for the button. So that button will be disabled. So if we just copy that, and then we go back to the code, and where the button is, let's just go to the submit button, and we want to give it an attribute of disabled. It will not work when somebody tries to submit because that button will be disabled. Alright, so let's just refresh, and you see the button is disabled. It's nothing you can do, it's grayed out. And the size attribute, so The size attribute specifies the size in characters, for example, input field. So the size is the size of characters that you want the field to carry. So for example, if we take just this 40 and let's just test with one field, and let's just do this text area and just give it value of 40. So if we start typing, it will not go beyond 40 words. So let's just start typing. Did we really save? Let's just get. I think you can change this. We can, let me just copy that, cut that, and you can test it on you can test it on HTML name. We can just test it on name. So the input name, we can just give it a size. Just want to give it a size of 5 and save it. Then after that, just refresh, and then on the name, well, I really don't know why it is not working, but then basically what it does is to limit the size of the characters to be entered. Well, actually I'm very sorry. The max length is the one that is used for that. Actually, it is max length, not size. So max length, let's change to 5. And refresh. And if we come here and write, you find that it gets to 5 and then it stops. So if you want to limit the number of characters, you use the max length attribute. So that is it with HTML, and in the next tutorial I'll be doing CSS. I'll be looking on CSS, how we can now, right now there's nothing we've done. There's no any maybe changing how these working on how these things or these data should be displayed. We just done plain HTML. The plain HTML is like a skeleton. But when you start working on CSS, now the one that now brings about the beauty, or how you can now position these elements very well in a very organized manner. Okay, so I believe that was I've covered most of the things, but I want to say that those are not all the things that are to be covered in HTML. There are a lot of things to be covered in HTML. And this is just a foundation that you can start and build on. So we have many tags. If you just search for like all the HTML tags, so the most important thing is to take just take the very important. So you can see all these tags. So these are all these tags. You have to look at where they are used, but some of them are not important. So I've just looked at most used tags. Like all these, you can work on a project and you'll not use any of these. But then I've looked at the most popular tags, or the tags that are mostly used in any HTML document. It is upon whoever is doing that to go and research. And when you are maybe doing something and you need a different tag, it's upon you to go and look at those tags on the internet. You can search them on the internet. So thank you so much, and if you've not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe and hit on the like, on the bell, and the thumbs up, and let's meet in the CSS section.